Hi there, this is Love Johar. Thank you so much for watching this video and thank you so much for tuning in this channel. In this channel, we will understand the Annex control ISO 27002 first control, and this will be now a series of the controls of ISO 27002 that I am presenting now. I am starting from the first control, which is the policies for information security 5.1, which we will be actually discussing in this video. Right? Stay tuned and please watch till the end. Okay, so in this control, we have guidance for implementation along with the questions related to the control. Okay, what all questions do we need to ask ourselves while implementing this control? Okay, what is the guidance of 27002? Okay, I have clubbed it into simple questions for you so that you can actually understand these questions and just refer to this as a checklist while preparing yourself for the annex controls, right? So the first and foremost thing is we need to check for that, does the organization have a formally documented information security policy which is approved by the top management? So here two things are conveyed by the 27002 standard. One is that the policy should be formal. Okay, it has to be a formal document. And second thing is that it should be approved by the top management. You should have be basically, after creating the policy, you should send it to the top management for their final review, right? This is something you need to be very cautious about. Then the next thing that the guidance is asking us to do is, does the information security policy clearly states the organization's commitment to information security? So definitely when it is approved by the top management, you need to mention that the organization is committed towards information security. You should clearly mention that in the policy, right, to show the commitment from the top management. Then the third thing is that, is the policy aligned with the organization's business strategy, regulatory requirements, contractual obligations, and risk environment? Now, you need to be very conscious about this, right? Now, while creating the policy, you have to make sure that you are considering what is your business strategy 5 years down the line, 2 years down the line, 1 year down the line, and what is the regulatory requirement. For example, if your company has to abide with GDPR, so you need to mention that over there. Okay, that as an organization we have to follow with this regulatory requirement as well. Similarly, if there is a contractual obligation as well with some of your service providers or from some of your supply chain vendors, then you need to mention that as well, okay, in that policy. And along with that, the risk environment, how are you making sure that, how are you making sure about the risk environment, whether it's intact or not, right? And after that, the fourth thing is, are the objectives of information security policy clearly defined and measurable? Okay, so first of all, you need to define the information security objectives, and then you need to make sure that they are defined and measurable. Okay, so you need to mention them in the policy, right? That's why it is important. Then the other thing is, does the policy define the scope of ISMS? Okay, so here it basically asks the policy to also reference the scope of the ISMS. Maybe you have created the scope in 4.3, but here also it wants the scope to be reflected in the policy itself. So if you want, you can copy the scope from 4.3, right, if you have created it. Otherwise, you can create the scope here only. Okay, both the options are there. Then the other thing is, are topic specific policies developed for critical areas such as access control, cryptography, incident management, and acceptable use? So you need to have topic specific policies as per your organization. And here in this policy, you need to only reference them, right? You need to make a reference of these policies, whether these policies are created or not. Only a reference of these policies. Otherwise, if you add these policies all in this information security policy, the document will be very long, 80 to 100 pages. Okay, so do not do that. Only give a reference over here. Okay, then the other thing is, are responsibilities for developing, reviewing, approving, and communicating policies clearly assigned and documented? Here you need to add roles and responsibilities. Okay, who will develop the policy, who will develop the information security policy, who will review the information security policy, who will approve the information security policy, who will be communicating this policy, what will be the periodicity of the communication. Each and everything you need to add the in the information security policy. Then the other thing that you need to understand is there a structured process for reviewing and updating policies to ensure their continual suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness. You need to define a structure here. Okay, who will review, who will update, what will be the periodicity. This will be a structure for the review. Okay, are policies reviewed and updated after significant organizational or environment changes? Again, you have to make sure that you keep this in mind. Okay, whenever there is any significant organizational changes, for example, your business is going through a demerger, or or an acquisition, these are all significant organizational changes, right? So you need to make sure that you review these policies at that time, the information security policy, right? And also, again, in case of environmental change, for example, if there is a sudden change in the environment as well in which the business is operating, definitely you need to again review the policy, right? Are review cycles and intervals for policies defined and documented? Definitely, we have already discussed that the review period will be defined and the interval will also be defined in the policy itself. Then, are there records of policy review meeting? Okay, so you need to mention the records of policy review meeting also, in terms of minutes or action plan. Okay, what was discussed in the policy review meetings, you need to mention those records as well in this policy, or as a separate document if you want, but definitely these records are important. Okay, are changes to policies approved by relevant stakeholders, including top management, and is this process documented? Okay, so definitely you need to make sure that you define roles and responsibilities here, in terms of who will be performing the changes to the policies, and you make sure you add the relevant stakeholders and the top management in that, right? And the next thing after that is there a version control mechanism for tracking policy updates? How you tracking the policy updates? Do you have a version control mechanism, a change control mechanism? Okay, and by this you can only make sure that the current version are in use, right? So you need to have a version control mechanism as well. Okay, are policies accessible to all the relevant personnel, and their procedures to ensure they are communicated effectively or not? Okay, so the policies need to be accessible to all the employees at all the time. Okay, especially the information security policy. And you need to communicate where you have actually shared it. It could be a SharePoint location as well, it could be a centralized server location as well, but you need to make sure you inform this to your employees. Okay, are employees required to formally acknowledge their understanding of the policies? Okay. Yes, the answer is yes. And is the acknowledgement recorded? Yes. You need to record the acknowledgement from the employees as well, so that in case tomorrow if something bad happens to the organization, at least you can say that, yes, the employee actually read it, and even after reading the policy, they kind of did not adhere to the policy, right? And after that, our policies included in the onboarding program for new employees, contractuals, and third parties. This is very important from a HR induction perspective. And you need to make sure that this information security policy should be included in the onboarding program, induction program for new employees, contractors, and third parties, right? And after that, is there evidence that awareness programs are conducted to educate employees about policy requirements? So whenever you conduct awareness program, you need to make sure that the policies are also considered and discussed in those awareness programs, so that people are aware about these policies, right? After that, our policies are communicated to external parties, third party suppliers, supply chain vendors, where relevant, and our confidentiality requirements are maintained. For example, if there is a external party where you have a high reliance, and let's say the external third party is not available for 5 minutes and your entire business goes down, so in this case, have you communicated your information security policy? So in terms of this line, what do we mean by that is, we need to communicate the expectations from the external third party vendor. Okay, this is how we are operating our business in terms of information security. Okay, and you, since you are our critical vendor, so can you also operate in this same term? So that's why we need to make sure that we need to communicate the information security policy to the external parties as well, right? And are there provisions for adding non-compliance with policies, including disciplinary actions? Definitely, we need to add non-compliance, in the policy itself, and making sure that anybody who is not following the policy, who is not adhering to the policy, is basically resulted into a disciplinary action. Okay, are exceptions to the policies formally documented, evaluated, and approved by appropriate authority levels? In case of any exception to the policy, you need to make sure that the exception is basically documented, evaluated, and approved by the appropriate authority levels. It is very important. Okay, do not just keep on giving exceptions to your policies, guys. It is very harmful to the business in the long term if you keep on giving exceptions, right? I know that because of many business reasons, sometimes the managers are all kind of stuck, so that's why they give the exceptions. But these exceptions might prove fatal in the long term, right? So you need to be very cautious here. Okay, then after that, what we have is our lessons learned from previous incidents or audit findings incorporated in the policy revisions. Definitely, in case of any lessons learned from previous incidents or audit findings, they should be incorporated into the policy revision as well. Okay, and does the policy include reference to related standards or framework? Definitely, if you are following ISO framework or if you are following NIST framework, you need to mention that in the policy, right? This is the related standard or framework that the company is adhering to at the moment, right? Our policy designed to address identified risk and align with the organization risk treatment plan. Definitely, the policy is designed, to address identified risks and align with the organization risk treatment plan. So definitely, you need to make sure that your policy is aligned with your entire risk management approach, how you are performing the risk management, and if you want, you can give a reference of the risk management document over here as well, a small reference. Okay, is the information security policy integrated with other organization policy? Yes. The answer is yes. You need to integrate it with other policies as well, especially for privacy, where compliance is the first and foremost important, right? And after that, are these processes in place to ensure that the policies remain legally compliant with changing laws and regulation? Definitely. So we need to make sure that we are updating these policies timely so that we are legally compliant with changing laws and regulations, right? And the update cycle and who will update and each and everything is defined properly in this policy itself, right? Are there audit trails or records showing compliance with the policy requirements? Definitely. As a business, you need to have the audit trails where you can show compliance with the policy requirements. Everybody is following their due diligence and then working accordingly, right? And also, in case of any issues, you can refer to these audit trails. Okay, are metrics or KPIs defined to measure the effectiveness of the policies? Now, how would you, measure the effectiveness of the policy? There are different ways to do that, and as per this guidance, the ISO 27001 basically wants us to, create some metrics and KPIs basically to measure the effectiveness of the ISMS that we have, right? And after that, are there documented guidelines for policy distribution and accessibility across organization levels? Definitely, there are documented guidelines for policy distribution and accessibility across the organization levels. Once you are part of the policy distribution process, you will come to know that. Okay, are there provisions in the policy for ensuring its applicability to remote workers or distributed teams? Definitely. While addressing the scope of the policy, we make it clear that it is applicable to all employees at all locations. That means we are referring to remote workers and distributed teams as well. Okay. Are the result of audits on management reviews used to evaluate and improve policy implementation? Definitely they will. Okay, once you have results of audits or management reviews, basically you have a complete understanding of what is the area where your ISO 27001 implementation is lagging, and along with that you basically take care of the entire implementation, right? So these are some of the guidance and questions in terms of implementation of ISO 27002 5.1 policies for information security. And in case of any follow-up questions, if anything is not clear, feel free to add in the comment section. And thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye bye.